Unfortunately, the doctor quickly informed the girl it was an incurable disease. Anxiety immediately overtook her, and she could not believe what the doctor said. The man explained that she was called manna flower disease, and he didn't know how she had gotten herself into such a state. Due to the distortion of the mana flow in the body, spots appear on it that are very similar to flowers, hence the name. There is currently no cure for it. The girl was in despair after hearing. Not much time has passed since her father died, and now, as luck would have it, she herself has fallen ill. What a pity. To begin with, he suggested that she take at least this medicine regularly. It won't cure the disease, but it will slow down its progression. The girl asked how long she could last if she drank it. The man answered her for 3 years at most. 3 years then. That's understandable, Amanda answered. As soon as she left the office, she thought, it can't be. This is so absurd that she even wanted to laugh. Amanda didn't understand why she would be given such a short period of that very life in this life. Amanda Flidgington, at 24 years old, she inherited the title of Viscount, and her life at first glance might seem the life of a rich aristocrat who has everything, but in reality, no family, no home, no fortune. Amanda had none of that. She was an impoverished, ruined aristocrat. Of course it wasn't always like that. As a child, under the care of her father, a viscount and successful businessman, she lived in prosperity and love. But around the time she entered the academy, the family's affairs began to decline, and her life also went downhill. Her father, who always loved to help others, when his only friend, Earl Lever, begged on his knees for help. And having decided to help the Count at any cost, he made a fatal mistake by signing the paper that he handed him without looking. All this was a trick of the Count, who was hunting for the Viscount's enormous fortune. But the father had no idea about this. As a result, the Viscount's family, having taken on the Count's numerous debts, went bankrupt overnight. Father was busy day and night, trying to borrow at least for interest. And she, in turn, had no choice but to concentrate on her studies, the only thing she could do. Of course, rumors had already spread and she was bullied at the academy, but she had to endure. Amanda had a goal to study hard, earn money, and live happily with her father again. At least until she discovered her father's hanged body at the entrance to the mansion. Shocked by the sight of her father, who eventually committed suicide, she fainted right there. But in those few days that she was unconscious, among endless waves of memories, she was confronted with memories of her past life, where she was abandoned in an orphanage immediately after birth. And when she entered high school, she was diagnosed with an incurable disease and saw herself in a past life. Herself, alone awaiting death, and the current her, Amanda Flinton, was just a minor character from the novel, which she read before her death. Everyone loves only the saint, okay, she thought. To be reborn is still not so bad. At least in this life she learned what family warmth is, but the problem is that in this life she is also terminally ill. Having sold all her property to pay off her debts, she held a modest funeral for her father alone, which no one attended. Only a week has passed since the funeral. She is still having a hard time coping with this shock, and now she is also terminally ill. She was so happy that she had gained power, but she couldn't even imagine that it would turn against her like this. She had the ability to control the dreams of others, and she learned about it by accident after graduating from the academy. Looking at her father, who could barely sleep after daily attacks from creditors, she wanted to ease his burden. The moment she touched him with her hand, suddenly a warm light emanating from her hand began to envelop her father. At first, she didn't realize what this ability was, but the next day after using it, she realized it thanks to her father's words. And so, in the end, she dies due to the distortion of the mana that was the source of this power. She was so glad to see her father smile. How good it would be if she could unravel the flow of mana like tangled yarn. Oh, wait, that's right. Suddenly realizing something, Amanda jumped up from the bench. Wouldn't it be possible that by restoring the flow she would survive? Something could change the flow of mana, and it was the family heirloom of the Mercedes ducal family. It is a sacred object, the only family heirloom in the empire that has received the demon's blessing. She has the power to control all the mana in the world, just like she didn't realize before. This was an important detail in the original novel. If she had it, she wouldn't have to die so senselessly. But there was one problem: only the current Duke Mercedes had access to the relic. The problem is that Duke Carden is the villain and the second main male character in this novel. He, who lived in eternal torment due to uncontrollable mana, met the saint and was temporarily freed from his suffering. However, his obsession and madness towards her gradually grew, and in the end, as befits a villain. He was facing a tragic death, and how could she ask such a man to lend her a family heirloom? No, how could she, a ruined aristocrat, even get close to the Duke? This was probably too reckless a plan, she thought, but suddenly she came across the right ad. Mercedes's house needed a governess, and this was her chance, she thought excitedly. But this ad was posted 2 weeks ago, so they probably hired someone a long time ago. But if she can't borrow the power of the relic, she will be back in this life. Right, first she would try to go. Amanda no longer wanted to sit idly by and wait for death. Therefore, the girl turned to the coachman, asking him to immediately take her to the Duchy of Mercedes. It is necessary to try everything possible. Arriving at the mansion, Amanda was stunned by the Mercedes Duchy, not even believing that it was real. The rumors that the empire was ruled by the imperial family, the temple, and the Mercedes Duchy turned out to be true. Everything here is first class, from the very entrance, if only she had that much money. Perhaps father too. No, there is no point in thinking about such things. Right now the primary task is to survive. And to do this you need to be fully armed, Amanda thought, when she suddenly noticed a child running towards her. The young gentleman was asked in an anxious voice to wait. The boy, pushing Amanda away, shouted not to follow him. The maid was already out of breath, trying to catch up with the young master, when suddenly, noticing the man, she called the head butler. She immediately asked the lady if she was okay, and Amanda answered yes and said that she had come in response to an advertisement for a governess. As the head butler ran up to them, Amanda looked back at the boy who had knocked her down. Could this really be the very young master she was supposed to train? It looked like she was in for a tough ride. The butler immediately apologized for such rudeness towards the guest and introduced himself as Winston Georgie. He apologized for their young master's recent rudeness and asked if she was hurt anywhere. "Everything is fine," Amanda answered. Winston was glad and asked what brought her to the estate. The girl called out to the butler. "She said that this lady came in response to an advertisement for a governess. Is this true?" he asked in surprise. He thoughtfully told the lady that the conversation might drag on and suggested that she go inside with him first. "Yes, of course," the Viscountess agreed, wondering if something was wrong, if there was a problem. She hoped it was nothing serious. "So she said she came in response to an advertisement for a governess." Winston began the conversation. "Yes," the girl answered enthusiastically, introducing herself as Amalia Flinkton from the Imperial Academy. But the butler immediately apologized to the lady and said that in fact they had already hired a new governess for the gentleman. It was his fault that he hadn't taken down the ad immediately, and he was very sorry that she had come such a long way. What? Such a sudden refusal, she knew it. The family of Viscount Flinkton. He heard that they were ruined after the suicide of the Viscount. But no matter how much Georgie felt sorry for her, they couldn't accept just anyone into Mercedes's family. As compensation for the fact that she came here in vain, and as payment for the injuries caused by the gentleman, they will pay compensation. If he says something like that in the mansion, it means that he won't leave her any chance to negotiate. The ad had been up for 2 weeks. She had been expecting it. But she couldn't just give in. She had one last trump card, saying that she should have come earlier. Amanda refused compensation. Having thanked her for the tea, she said that she would go. The butler, worried, offered to at least prepare a carriage for her. Having stumbled deliberately, she called this operation a clumsy teacher, and the butler became alarmed. Amanda apologized, saying she felt a little dizzy, but the maid thought she had twisted her ankle in the collision. Winston said that they would immediately prepare a carriage for her. He would put everything in his bag in the meantime, and told her to sit down for now. "Not worth it," Amanda answered, but then the man picking up the papers noticed a ruby diploma among all the others. "It can't be," he thought, stunned. The daughter of a ruined viscount has a diploma confirming that she was the best of the best graduates of the Imperial Academy, the elite of the elite, Amanda called out to the butler. Wincing, he begged her pardon and asked the lady if she could stay for tea, not wanting to let her go with an injured leg. Excellent. The trump card worked. In fact, after this she was going to stop by the Imperial Palace. After all, she received an offer to become the teacher of His Highness the Crown Prince, of course. She did not chase positions, she was where she was needed. The butler simply could not miss such a valuable asset, and asked the lady if she would agree to become the teacher of young Master Vincent. "What?" Amanda asked, pretending to be perplexed. But he said that they had already found a new teacher. He said, "But shouldn't they hire an outstanding person like Lady Flington, even if they have to announce additional recruitment? The boy has a bad reputation among the governesses. The previous one was not up to par, but now a more valuable candidate has appeared, and he could not let her pass him by." He presented a contract for the position of governess, guaranteeing better conditions, and he asked Lady Flington to fill in the last page according to her wishes. They will try to fulfill her conditions. Everything went according to her plan. Now she could get into Mercedes's family. She accepted his offer. Great. Now she had to wait for the right moment to get the relic and escape. She could have refused, citing his previous attitude, but she was generous, and he begged her to take care of him. Thus, the penetration was successful. It was already late, so he gave her a room, offering to rest and move her things tomorrow. The tension finally eased, and she suddenly felt tired, like a flower sickness of manna. Dying from black flowers blooming on the body, an inappropriate romanticism for an incurable disease, the fear of death was present. But this is not the path she chose. Death is just death. It is better to survive, even if she has to live in torment. Vincent Mercedes, the adopted son of Duke Carden, who was taken from an orphanage, is the little devil of the family. There were rumors that he refused to go to the academy and in every possible way abused his governesses, driving them out. Now her main task is to get closer to Vincent, using the information from the novel, Stop. How old is Vincent now? If Carden is 26 this year, then his son is 10. At that moment, she remembered a scene from the novel and ran out into the street on rainy days. Vincent climbed the western hill. Leaning alone against an old tree, he yearned for a man who would never come, secretly from everyone. All alone, Amanda finally found that very western hill. And the end of this wait came when Vincent turned 12 years old. That's right. This is the same child she saw earlier. This is the kind of child he was. The original stated that Vincent woke up at 12 and killed his father. He was adopted by Mercedes's family when he was about 3 years old, and it is unknown why he lived in an orphanage, inheriting Mercedes's blood. One day, Duke Carden visited this orphanage and took Vincent, the son of his elder brother. After this, Carden made his nephew Vincent his only adopted son and heir. From the day the boy received the surname Mercedes, he became a good target for other aristocrats. They said that he was an illegitimate son. They said that the Duke hated him. He is of low birth, soon to be abandoned, and has suffered all the contempt and hatred of this world. Even she, who had not made a single friend during her studies at the Imperial Academy, had heard rumors about him. One could imagine how hard it was for him, so Vincent directed the arrows of anger at his adoptive father. And in the end, at the age of 13, he killed his adoptive father, whom he did not even consider as such. Carden, whom he killed, also had his own tragic story, in which there were 3 main male characters, which was sacred to all. The real protagonist, who ended up with the main character, is Crown Prince Hugo Lea La Granazia, Holy Knight, Eden Icarium, and finally the last villain, Carden Mercedes. Carden, who was both the villain and the second protagonist, was killed by his adopted son at that moment, when he, not being chosen by the main character Celestine, became crippled. Carden, unloved even by the main character, suffered from a terrible sense of loss, and ultimately met a terrible end. Duke Carden may have been saved for a moment by Celestine, but his son did not even find hope. They both spent painful days alone and isolated, and now the events take place long before Carden met the heroine. Perhaps he is still feeling very hard and lonely, but this is not the time to think about it. She should think about herself first. And first of all, in order to get closer to Duke Carden and his family, you first need to become friends with Vincent. The boy was hiding under a tree, bored, waiting, when suddenly he heard a rustle and looked around. I asked who was there. Amanda needs to be polite and make a good impression. Therefore, coming out of the bushes, the girl awkwardly greeted the boy, who was horrified. It was quite expected that his gaze was full of suspicion. After all, she appeared so suddenly. There's nothing to be done, but still, it's good that she found him here. First, she needs to talk to him naturally. She apologized. It suddenly started to rain, and she ended up here, escaping from it, assuming that he was here for the same reason. Vincent looked at the girl suspiciously, and she, confused, said that she would leave if she was bothering him. Nothing, he answered surprisingly and sat down next to me. How cute. He seemed to relax a little. She wanted to pinch his cheek, but then he would hate her. By the way, Vincent, according to the novel, had an aversion to governesses, so you need to get closer to him before the start of classes. Her original plan was to slowly get closer, working through his trauma. But it's hard to pass by when a small child is sitting in the rain. You have to somehow break his wariness. But noticing that the stranger was staring at him, the boy turned away. Amanda realized she had been staring too hard and needed to apologize, which she did. But suddenly she noticed that it was not what she thought. He looked like he was terrified. Watching Vincent tremble slightly, she felt a sense of déjà vu, a multitude of words she had heard in a past life. Ridicule over her illness and the loss of her parents, bullying and reminders of loneliness. Social phobia, fear of people. At that moment, Amanda was able to understand Vincent's feelings. She couldn't leave this child who was suffering from the same pain as her alone. And so the girl turned to the boy and, asking him to listen, offered to become friends. He asked if she knew who he was. She answered. She knew. She was also something of an aristocrat. She asked if he was Vincent Mercedes, but then the boy exclaimed, he didn't mean that. She definitely didn't know who he was. Because if she knew, she definitely wouldn't want to be friends with him, Vincent said timidly. Amanda saw and understood the boy's feelings. I asked Vincent if he had hit anyone or maybe stolen something. No, there was nothing like that, he shouted. True, Amanda asked kindly, and said that then she had no reason not to believe him. She extended her hand to him, but Vincent was still scared and didn't trust her. But the girl told Vincent that she did not believe the rumors about him and would not listen to them in the future. She believed only the Vincent she saw with her own eyes. His words inspired confidence. Finally, the girl introduced herself as Amanda Flington and asked Vincent to be her friend. As soon as the boy took the girl's hand, the weather instantly cleared up, and Amanda suggested to Vincent that they go back together. That same night, Winston knocked on the Duke's office and was allowed to enter. The head of the Mercedes family asked the butler what was the matter, and he informed Mr. Carden that he had hired another governess. She is a talented person who received a ruby diploma from the Imperial Academy. The Duke did not ask him to report on every little thing. Winston apologized and said that Vincent was not feeling well, so he called the attending physician. After making sure that his son was now asleep, Carden said that he needed to go and see how he was. West Wing, 3rd floor, room at the end of the corridor. That's right, that must be Vincent's room. Just a few hours ago, even though they had only been in the rain for a short time, it had been quite cold. On the way here, Vincent's cough got even worse, and it was necessary to cure him quickly. But as soon as their eyes met, the boy fearfully ran away. Amanda thought they were getting a little closer, but maybe she had been too hasty. Winston, who met her, asked the governess what had happened, and the girl looked back. She said that Vincent was not feeling well. He had a cough and probably a fever. The young gentleman had a habit of hiding his illnesses. He thanked for the information. She told him about it as soon as they got back, so he should be sleeping peacefully by now. In the end, it came to this: if Winston is there, it would be better to go back, Amanda thought, looking inside. However, inside she saw a whining boy suffering from a fever. Amanda immediately ran to him, asking where everyone had gone, leaving the child alone. Crying, Vincent asked his mother not to leave, and the girl realized that it was not a cold. Every time it rains, Vincent gets so feverish that he feels like he's having a nightmare. Amanda was worried that the pain was too much for the baby. She asked him not to worry. Even though she couldn't change reality, she could change his dreams. After a while, Amanda finished with the spell and wondered how Vincent was doing. Now he was no longer crying and looked more peaceful, although he was still calling for his mother. The girl believed that he had met his mother at least in a dream, and apologized that this was all she could do. He was feeling much better, so she had to go back, wishing Vincent a good night's sleep. As she left the room, she hoped that she wouldn't meet anyone on the way, but suddenly a man asked who was there. "Who is wandering around the young master's room at this hour?" Winston asked. Amanda recognized him by his voice, and then she saw the figure next to him and trembled. Duke Carden Mercedes. The man she needed so much to survive, was she really going to run into him like this? Lifeless, dry eyes, pale skin, bloodless lips, like a walking dead person, definitely symptoms of insanity. People call it that, but in fact it is a side effect of the magical storm. But this will only become known after Carden's death. How tragic. Having recognized the teacher, the butler asked what she was doing near the young master's room at such an hour. First, he needed to explain the situation. Amanda apologized, saying she had gone down to get the medicine because she was worried about him. "In that case, we could have called someone," Winston answered, and Amanda thought that he was already looking after him. The head butler was about to answer, but the Duke ordered them to stop. He ordered Winston to come in and check, and if there were any problems, she would be held responsible. Even when it came to his own son, Carden was as cold as ice. That's why he seemed like a complete stranger. The butler told the teacher that it was already late and asked her to come back. Also, just in case, he will place a knight at the door to prevent unforeseen situations. This suited her. Amanda asked Winston to do as he saw fit and took her leave. First of all, she needed to disappear as quickly as possible, she thought, and Arden watched her go. Today she overexerts herself, and she managed to get involved in such a thing with Carden, who gets rid of everything. What's stopping him? If she were careless, she could become his victim. Now he couldn't control his magic, and his condition was so bad that he had to smoke a calming herb. Even if a calming herb temporarily relieves a headache, the real problem, severe insomnia, will not go away. And he hadn't slept for at least a week, and even so he was very handsome, she thought. But she said, embarrassed, that these useless thoughts gave her a headache and decided to sleep better. Night gave way to morning, but in the end she still couldn't sleep. She had only been in the duchy for a day and was already under house arrest. Was she really going to be kicked out of the mansion? And just as she was thinking about the butler, there was a knock on the door. The girl introduced herself as Chelsea, and from today on she would be serving her, and asked her to contact her if she needed anything. They simply assigned a maid to her, and Amanda extended her hand and introduced herself, saying that she was pleased to meet her. Chelsea was stunned. Most maids were used to not being treated as servants, but rather as tools. "Is something wrong?" Amanda asked in surprise. "No," Chelsea answered. She just didn't expect her to offer her hand. But Amanda wanted to be on good terms with Chelsea, so she said it was okay. She hoped that they would work together, and the maid also hoped for her kindness. Next, Chelsea brought in a cooked breakfast, the size of which shocked Amanda. There was no time to worry about being kicked out. A full stomach is much better than an empty one. Villains are the best, she thought, not yet knowing at that moment how turbulent her life would be in the future. When he met the head butler, he asked the teacher if she had slept well. "It's all thanks to him," the girl answered joyfully and praised the delicious breakfast. He recalled the nights from her, and it seemed that all suspicions were dispelled. What happiness! He asked to come in. Another teacher was already here, and finally Amanda would meet her, the governess from the original. Vincent from the original said that the teacher said that his father does not consider him his son, that she is the only one who cares about him. There were probably many reasons why Carden and Vincent grew apart, but the governess also had a huge influence on their relationship, but this back seemed familiar to her. Did Amanda really remember her? Anna Lever asked, and the girl looked back, recognizing Amanda Flington. "Who would have thought that she would meet her here?" Anna exclaimed. She was so glad, and suggested that they continue to get along. They say that when a person is completely perplexed, he loses the power of speech, and now Amanda understood this. Anyone who saw them would have thought that they were real friends, but Winston was surprised that they knew each other. Anna responded enthusiastically that she and Amanda had been friends since childhood. "And indeed," she asked next, "what a persistent fate, isn't it, Amanda?" "And don't talk," she answered, not having any desire to talk to her, truly annoying. Now that they had two teachers, he thought it would be a good idea to split the teaching time into 3 hours in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Anna gasped and told the butler that she was worried even she, who had arrived here earlier, had not yet been able to get close to the master. And she was worried whether he would be able to accept the new tutor as expected. She was not going to keep silent. But Winston said that she need not worry about this, and Anna was surprised. The butler reported that young Master Vincent had already received Teacher Flington. What does this mean?" she asked. Amanda thanked the man for organizing the event and said that Teacher Lever had his own teaching method. She suggested teaching the class after lunch, and Winston agreed with her, saying that the class would start tomorrow. Amanda clearly saw that it was a trick, but this time, Anna, things won't go according to her plan, will they? Having resolved the remaining organizational issues, Amanda said that they would probably go. But then the butler called out to Lady Flington and asked her to give him a moment. He heard yesterday from the young master that she helped him when he had a fever. Amanda was a little surprised that Vincent, that is, the young gentleman, said so. Although it was difficult for Winston to understand her actions, a favor is a favor, and he wanted to take this opportunity to thank her. Was Vincent really standing up for her? How touching that was, Amanda thought. Winston had served in this duchy for a long time, but this was the first time he had seen the young gentleman protect someone. He thought with hope that maybe she could change the young master. As soon as Amanda left the guest room, Anna, who was waiting for her, called out to her loudly. And indignantly raising his voice, he asked how she got a job as a tutor in this mansion and ordered her to reveal her true intentions. Ha! Since no one is around, she finally shows her true face. It was funny, but Anna was irritated by her smile. Yes, Amanda asked. It's so funny, isn't it? She and her father took everything from her, so why does she treat her like an enemy? To put it briefly, their relationship with Anna is like that of a creditor and the daughter of a debtor. Moreover, she is the main culprit who turned her life into a nightmare. They met Anna when she was 9 years old, and at their first meeting she was a sweet and good girl. However, her smile was fake. As soon as the adults were distracted, she revealed her true face. Throwing aside the toys, she asked if she really thought that someone like her could be her friend. She just needed to break off relations with her, and that's all. But the students of the academy heard that her father owed Anna's father a huge sum. They said that he lost them in gambling, and what a lie! It was Anna's father who deceived her father. If we are talking about the relationship between a debtor and a creditor, then the story changes. Anna's bullying of her did not stop, and in addition, it became more and more sophisticated and vicious. And in the end, just as Anna wanted, she found herself in complete isolation and loneliness. But does Anna herself know that, not wanting to give in to her even in her studies, she clenched her teeth even harder? But now she won't cower in fear when death is on the doorstep. What does she have to fear? She is no longer afraid of Anna, and besides, she knows the entire content of the original, which allows her to stand firmly on her feet. She asked if she was going to take revenge on her now, saying that she had taken from her what belonged to her. Sighing, Amanda took a step, saying, "It seems that Anan is very much mistaken. She is not worth such an effort for her." The debt was paid in full, so she no longer owed the Lever family anything. And if she finally understood this, then she suggested not to tire each other out. Anana screamed, "Where was she going? She wasn't finished yet." It's strange, Amanda thought, before Anna was like bullying for her. Then she would have been very scared of her, and she would probably have run away from her sooner. But now she is even very grateful that everything turned out this way. If this is Anna, then she will certainly do everything to drive her out of this mansion. In that case, she would also take advantage of her, and would never give her the position of Vincent's governess. Left alone, Anna clenched her teeth, angry at Amanda. Did she really think she could get away with this and was determined to make her regret it? Amanda had lived in this mansion for a long time, but this was the first time she was heading in this direction. Winston gave her a pass and told her she had to come here, and just like that, Amanda saw what she needed. It was definitely her, the library, one of the main attractions of Mercedes. It is indeed huge, as rumors said, larger than the imperial one, and apparently one cannot enter here whenever one wants. Amanda came here to prepare materials for Vincent, but how can she now look for books in such a huge place? Suddenly, she saw a male silhouette behind the curtain, mistaking such a fair-haired man for a fairy. The fairy said hello. Realizing that they were not familiar, he asked for forgiveness and asked if he could know her name. Amanda turned away from the light coming from the guy, but came to her senses and pulled herself together. It was impolite. And finally she introduced herself as Amanda Flington, the new governess of young Master Vincent. The man introduced himself as Rayvon, the caretaker and librarian at the Mercedes Library. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Rayvon," said the pleasant girl, extending her hand. "Him too," the man answered. Amanda was shocked that he kissed her hand. This is usually done at balls or receptions, so it was unexpected. But perhaps he had simply been taught how to greet someone incorrectly, and in order not to embarrass him, she decided to ignore it. She apologized and said that she wanted to find some teaching aids for the young gentleman. There was so much here that she wondered if he could help her. For a moment his expression changed, but then he smiled and asked me to name the genre and title so that he could find it himself. Amanda handed him the previously compiled list, and the librarian asked him to wait a little. And soon he brought the book she was looking for, and the girl thanked him. Then Rayvon asked if she wanted to look into that room if she was interested in the books. There was a door, Amanda thought in surprise. She hadn't even noticed it because it blended into the wall. Usually entry to outsiders was prohibited, but for her, Lady Amanda, he could make an exception. And who knows, maybe she will find something very valuable in that room. Having said this, Rayvon announced that he would go. The words about something valuable caught Amanda's attention, and she was eager to take a look. The room was striking at first glance upon entering. A huge number of shelves of books opened up. Suddenly, she discovered a collection that her father had read to her as a child. This book was impossible to obtain in this empire. And since she was here, it was worth taking a look, when suddenly she heard a groan. The sound came from behind, and Amanda followed the sound and came across its source. It was Carlin, and the girl found it difficult to believe that what she saw was real. She didn't understand why Carlin was here, and more importantly, he looked unwell, as if he was having a nightmare. Carlin barely sleeps due to the side effects of the magical storm, and even when he does, he has nightmares, which is sad. Amanda didn't want to leave the Duke in this state, and she thought she could help him. But as soon as she reached for the Duke's head, he immediately sensed it and grabbed her hand. And waking up, he asked what she was doing here. Amanda shuddered in surprise. How sudden, of course, all this time she was looking to be alone with him. But this situation was too frightening, so it was impossible to even explain it. But, pulling herself together, she realized that it was better to explain everything quickly, asking first to let go of her hand. And she confidently said that she thought he was having a nightmare and just wanted to check if everything was okay. And she also didn't know that the Duke would be here. The girl explained that she was saying all this so that, God forbid, he would not misunderstand her, and hurried away. As soon as the door slammed, Carlin thought, strangely, the headache he always had was gone. With some suspicion, he remembered that this woman was, supposedly, Vincent's governess. And then I noticed a book left for her called 12 Stories for Those Who Can't Sleep. A slight smile appeared on Duke Mercedes' face, showing interest in this person. So time passed, and the day of the first lesson arrived. The memories of that meeting still gave me goosebumps. Just from the look on his face, she thought he was going to chase her and do something. Meeting that cold gaze, all her confidence evaporated. She no longer knew whether she could persuade him to give her the family heirloom, but she waved it off. She was already on the edge of the abyss. There was no need to be afraid. First, she needed to have a good lesson with Vincent. Well, it's time to begin. She entered the room and greeted Vincent. But suddenly she froze, realizing with horror that there was no one in the room. Amanda searched for the boy everywhere and ran with the search until sunset, but Vincent was nowhere to be found. She had been looking for him for 3 hours already. He was not even on the hill, so only Vincent's room remained. While she was thinking about where he could have gone, she suddenly noticed a closet in the boy's room. And she remembered that in her past life, when she lived in an orphanage, there were children who, frightened, hid in the closet. There is also a closet in Vincent's room, which means Amanda called the boy by name. And knocking on the door, she asked if he was there. Vincent, not expecting to be found, shuddered. Hearing the sounds, Amanda practically exhaled, thank God he was inside. She asked if he knew how scared she was when he disappeared, thinking that something had happened. After a pause, Vincent asked if she was disappointed that he had run away, and the teacher admitted that she had been confused at first. But I thought that this was completely normal. They didn't know each other well yet, and the unfamiliar could be scary. So it's okay if he runs away far enough for her to catch up with him and hides in the closet when he's scared. Vincent was very touched by the governess's words for the first time. No one scolded him for running away. And feeling awkward in front of her, he ran out of the closet and apologized to the teacher. They went out for a walk in the garden, watching the boy. It seemed that he had calmed down a little. Now Amanda decided to find out from the student what he was afraid of, that he hid from her. Vincent started awkwardly and called himself stupid, a fool. He was afraid that he would disappoint her. Why? The girl asked, and the young gentleman had heard that she had been a genius since childhood. That's why I thought she wouldn't teach a fool like him and would be very disappointed in him. Yes. Anna tried again. Vincent timidly asked if he was pathetic. Amanda immediately apologized for the heavy sigh, saying that it was not because of him. The pain of being alone in this world, she knew it better than anyone else. So how could she drive him away? Amanda said that she would never be disappointed in him. Why? The boy asked in disbelief. What if he really was stupid? Because she is his teacher, Amanda answered. If he has faith in her, she will reciprocate his faith in the same way. And then she asked him if he felt a little better. He nodded shyly, and the teacher suggested that he go. The reason she wanted to get close to Vincent was to lower the villain's guard. But at that moment she wanted to become a support for this child. On the one hand, he is as much a victim of Roman as she is. They went inside with the boy after a heartfelt conversation, but someone was following them. Upon entering the mansion, Vincent called the teacher and said that he would listen to her properly in class tomorrow. Therefore, holding out his little finger in honor of the agreement, he asked the teacher to come, promising that he would wait. Amanda readily agreed with her student and said that she would look forward to tomorrow's lesson. Immediately after their little fingers separated, Vincent, true to form, ran into the room. Amanda shouted after him not to hurry, as he might fall, and thought about what had happened. Something else was more important. The problem was Anna Lever. She could not leave it like this any longer. Amanda decided she wasn't going to give in so easily, but out of nowhere, a sharp pain shot through her shoulder. It was so sudden that her legs began to give way, and not only that, she felt as if everything was swimming before her eyes. Unable to stand on her feet, she fell, but suddenly a strong man's hand caught her. Carden appeared in front of her face, and Amanda, embarrassed, wondered in surprise how he had ended up there. She knew for a fact that Carden couldn't stand it when others touched him. Why then did he catch her when she fell? Standing up, she thanked him, but the Duke immediately pointed to the blood. Amanda, taken aback, asked him what he meant, and Carden explained that her nose was bleeding. The girl was immediately overcome with horror from understanding the meaning of this blood, but why now? Amanda quickly apologized to the Duke and, saying that she had to go, ran away. As he watched Amanda Flinkton leave, Carden thought he would have to keep an eye on her for a while. The next morning, Amanda discovered a spot on her shoulder that had been piercing with pain. Still, yesterday's symptoms were due to a flower disease. The spot really did look like a flower. The doctor said that every time a new spot appears, symptoms will appear. Only now, feeling unwell, does she truly begin to realize that she is terminally ill. Therefore, before things get even worse for her, we need to somehow deal with Anna. It's hard to predict what the effect will be when it's revealed, but it was Anna who touched her first. What the hell? Anna stomped around, cursing. Why is Amanda, who was supposed to be kicked out in a couple of days, still here? When she had managed to get so close to the Duke still could not take his eyes off the hand with which he held her. And on top of that, this child, with whom she had suffered so much, also began to behave differently. At the last lesson, she praised him for his efforts and asked, "But it is unlikely that this will satisfy Amanda." "No," Vincent answered her coldly, which left Anna at a loss. The boy angrily told her not to speak badly about teacher Amanda if she didn't know her at all. And as if in love, he spoke about how kind the teacher Amanda was. Anna still couldn't understand how she had tamed him, but if she left everything as it was, she would definitely become a duchess and interfere with her plans. Anna had to get her out of this mansion, no matter what it cost her. And for this to happen, Amanda needs to get involved in some kind of huge scandal. She called to the first maid she saw and asked her to take it to Amanda Flinkton's room. Chelsea asked what it was, and Anna replied that Amanda had asked her to get her some sleeping pills. She gave it to the young master in secret from everyone, so she asked him to take it to Amanda's room. If she were suddenly caught, then it would be possible to blame everything on this maid, Anna gloated. And I thought, let's see if Amanda Flinkton can get out of this time too. The coachman took Amanda to a secret street at number 13. As expected, it is a lawless area where all sorts of illegal deals are made. The atmosphere was already getting tense. It was good that she had prepared a robe to hide her identity. She didn't come to such a dangerous place just like that, but to Luna's antique shop. Upon entering the shop, a man greeted her and asked if she was looking for something. Amanda had some doubts about whether her memories of the original work were accurate. But still, she didn't come in vain. And so, taking a risk, she told the worker that she had come to find the moon. The man didn't expect to hear a secret key from a stranger, but that's why it was secret. He immediately invited the special guest to go into another room. Her memories, fortunately, turned out to be correct. This antique shop Luna is just a cover. In reality, it is the best information guild in the Empire. There were many ways to get into the guild, but the password she gave was a high-class password that allowed one to meet with the guild leader. She uses everything in her power. The door opened, and the man said that he hoped she would have a good time. The man sitting at the table in the center of the room said how long it had been since he had had guests looking for him. He introduced himself to the head of this guild, Lemon, and asked her to tell him what task she had personally come to him with. The biggest incident that will happen during this time is the assassination attempt on the emperor using poison. If this man really is the guild leader, then he would never let such information slip. She said she wanted to sell the information, and Lemon began studying the material. It was information about a family that was smuggling a deadly poison, akebana. It's not just about the family, but also details the distribution process and whether he's now ready to make a deal. Lemon realized that the guest had come knowing all the ins and outs. Akebana is a colorless, odorless poison that cannot be detected. Recently, the emperor almost died from poisoning by it. If the guesses are correct, the imperial palace is investigating the matter. This information is difficult to obtain unless you are close to the emperor, but now you need to win the master's trust. If this list is genuine, there must be conditions. Amanda correctly agreed with him, and she asked that this information be conveyed to the commander of the First Sacred Knightly Order, Eden Aquilium, on behalf of the guild. Initially, the empire had a strong clerical power, but not long ago the balance of power began to shift. Therefore, the temple devised a plan to weaken the imperial power by healing the poisoned emperor with holy power. Fearing discovery, they secretly ordered one of their families to take over the smuggling of akebana. After this, the temple staged a show of arresting influential people in order to strengthen its position. At that time, the case was being investigated by the commander of the First Sacred Knightly Order, the second main character. According to the original plot, the family of smugglers was supposed to be arrested only a year later. But to deal with Anna as quickly as possible, events need to be sped up, but people from the temple will try to find her. Since she is looking for information about them, the Information Guild should become her shield in that case. Lemon couldn't help but laugh and asked her how she knew this top-secret information. And the fact that Eden Aquilium himself was leading the investigation made him immediately believe that things would go better than she thought. Okay, in return, Lemon would like to add one condition. Amanda knew that he would not agree so easily, and she offered the man to arrange a steam, taking the initiative into her own hands since she was going to continue to use the guild's services. Over the next 3 months, the first person to reveal the other's identity would win, Amanda suggested. Someone like Lemon would probably think that the bet was profitable for him, and after thinking about it, would ask if there was a prize in this bet. She knew it, and said that she would give him the information he wanted most as a prize. The man was interested and asked what she would get then, and she would tell him about it when the bet was over. For him, there is nothing more valuable than that very information, and the password when one reveals the other. Here, Lemon took the initiative and proposed his own option, the Butterfly of Fate. From the mythology of the Empire, long ago the Empire, divided into 2 tribes, waged war. As the war dragged on, the exhausted people asked God to determine the winner, and at that very moment, a butterfly appeared. She chose the winner, and the tribe that was not chosen eventually died out. The winner was called the Chosen One by the Butterfly of Fate, but on the other hand, this also means that the one who is not chosen will die. He chose the Butterfly of Fate as a password to warn her. Amanda tensed. But she won't be scared by this, because her life is already at stake, and they have approved the password. Lemon was curious to see who the butterfly would choose as the winner, and said goodbye to her until the next time they met. Leaving the guild, Amanda finally exhaled. It was all over. She was so nervous, thinking that she would be exposed. She thought about slowly returning to the mansion, but suddenly noticed a table with all sorts of junk. And I remembered when the main character of the novel was here, she found a precious treasure. Curious to see if it was still there, Amanda started looking and found it. It was a ring that relieved headaches, but she didn't know if it would work on Cardin. On the other hand, it's better than nothing. She turned to the man, saying that she wanted to buy it. But he kindly asked her to simply take it for herself and consider it a gift from the master. Amanda felt a little uneasy that it was coming from him, but oh well, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. The girl also made it to class on time. It was impossible to leave Vincent waiting from the very first lesson. Amanda knocked on the young gentleman's door and, saying it was her, said she was coming in. But she hesitated before entering, hearing an incomprehensible sound coming from inside. Soon, Vincent himself came out to Amanda and asked her to come in. He looked tense and hoped Anna hadn't done anything wrong. But when I looked up, I realized that the room wasn't just clean, it was sparkling. It looked like he'd diligently cleaned up for the first lesson. The boy admitted that he wanted to make a good impression on her, so he tried. Vincent was so sweet. Amanda was glad that he tried so hard for her. But then the boy, embarrassed, lowered his head and called the teacher. She leaned closer. And then Vincent gathered his courage and asked the teacher what she thought of him. What a sudden question, she thought, and replied that of course she only thought well of him. Then Vincent sadly asked why she always addressed him as young master. Amanda was being friendly and formal at times, which left him confused. It was her fault. From now on, we need to behave the same way. She apologized to the young master for confusing him. But before she could finish speaking, the boy, whining, grabbed the sleeve of her blouse. And he cried and confessed to the teacher that he didn't like it when she called him that. So that's it, Amanda thought, stunned. Was he really upset that she called him young master? Vincent, it turns out, loves her more than she thought and apologizes to the boy again, this time addressing him by name. But she told Vincent that they should agree that she would only call him that when they were alone. Why? He asked, and Amanda replied that some people might not think it was very good. They are a student and a teacher, and if she behaves too informally, they may question her qualifications. Vincent understood and said that in return he would call her Teacher Ami when they were alone. He spoke enthusiastically. She is special, so he does not want to grab her like everyone else. Vincent, Amanda said his name tenderly, as if agreeing to his terms. The boy probably doesn't even realize it, but Ami is an affectionate nickname her father called her. The girl agreed, but reminded him that only when they were alone, and they began their first lesson. He answered all the questions correctly, as far as she knew, before the number of his lessons could be counted on one hand. His level was higher than she thought, and she praised Vincent. She was surprised that he did better than she expected. True, the boy asked embarrassedly, and Amanda, confirming this, praised him again. But then the girl heard some noise outside the window and went over to check what was going on. There were holy knights standing on the street, and the one in front was probably Eden Aquilium. Like Carden, he was a minor male character in the novel, Everyone Only Loves the Saint, who, hiding his feelings, silently protected the main character Celestina, and his main rival, Duke Carden, since the Mercedes Duchy was the only family that did not worship the goddess. They were in constant conflict with Eden, the commander of the Holy Knights. After all, it was he who cut off Carden's hand as he succumbed to the darkness, leaving him crippled. Readers were delighted with this Eden, but for some reason she didn't like this scene. But suddenly there was a knock on the young gentleman's room, calling Lady Amanda, and the girl allowed him to enter. The butler girl reported that the head butler was asking all teachers to go to the reception area. When Amanda arrived at the scene, she naturally ran into Anna. "Hello?" the red-haired girl asked her discontentedly, not even understanding what Amanda was doing here. But, for her plans, it was even better recently her father had managed to establish a special relationship with the temple. He said that he would soon send her portrait to Eden, so she should behave decently. Since her father said so, it means that Amanda Flington will regret that she behaved so insolently with the future Marchioness. There were 2 sworn enemies in the reception room, and Eden said that he was waiting for both of them. Amanda thought in surprise that she had never expected to see Eden with Carden so soon. The captain of the knights said that it was he who asked to call the tutors and came for her. Father was right, Anna thought with a grin. He definitely came to meet her. She was devoted only to the Duke. But since my father said so, it was worth going with him, for the sake of decency. But while Anna was busy with this, Eden approached Amanda. He addressed her by the name Anna, and she tensely thought about what it meant and began to explain. But then Anna herself screamed that he must have gotten something mixed up, that this country bumpkin was not Anna Lever. Eden explained that he had heard that Lady Anna had a beautiful appearance, so he thought it was her. Anna pushed Amanda away and loudly exclaimed that Anna Lever was her. Amanda was so taken aback that she was suddenly grabbed by the shoulder. The girl thought that it was Carden who saved her again, but then Eden asked if she was okay. Amanda gasped and thanked him, saying she was okay, and was surprised it was him. The man apologized and said that there had been a mistake, and he asked for clarification again. Already turning to Anna, he asked if she was that very Anna Lever, the daughter of Count Lever. "That's all," the girl answered, exhaling. "She was that very Anna." "So that's how he found her." Eden asked if she could hold out both her hands to him. Extend both hands. The thought flashed through Anna's head again. Was he really going to give her a ring? The exchange of rings signifies a proposal of marriage. Well, he, of course, is a little inferior to the Duke. But the stable Marquis Eden was in every way better than the madman Carden having let her go. He would regret it. Okay, expecting to receive the ring? The girl said and followed the instructions. But the next moment, her hands were handcuffed with chains, and her face instantly changed. Eden told Anna Lever that she would have to follow them to the temple, and he would arrest her as a person involved in the assassination attempt on His Majesty the Emperor. Anna anxiously asked what he was saying, that he was involved in the assassination attempt on His Majesty. It was confirmed that her father was smuggling poisonous herbs with the aim of assassinating the Emperor. It can't be, the girl answered worriedly. She didn't believe that her father would be involved in smuggling something so terrible. Turning to the others, Eden asked if anyone had seen Lady Anna acting suspiciously. Chelsea raised her hand and apologized. She just had something that was bothering her. She held out the bag and said that teacher Anna Lever had recently given it to her. She told her to secretly place this bag in Flington's room and keep quiet. But she found it suspicious and simply kept it to herself, the maid reported. Anna screamed that she knew nothing about it, and besides, this woman was Amanda's personal servant. She probably set this up. Amanda suggested checking the contents of this bag so they could find out who its owner was. Anna exploded with anger at Amanda Flington, carefully hiding it. Then the head butler expressed a desire to check its contents, becoming a neutral judge. He took the bag from Chelsea's hands and emptied the contents into his hand. He declared that the tea leaves had no smell, meaning they were just ordinary dried tea leaves. "You see," Anan exclaimed, "she said she knew nothing about it." Amanda said it was strange and asked if tea leaves weren't supposed to have any smell. Winston agreed. At the academy, Amanda learned that there are colorless and odorless leaves that become harmful to the body when in contact with boiling water. Anna said that she had prepared these tea leaves for her, guessing something. Eden asked the Duke if he could intervene. "Go ahead," answered Carden, and the knight ordered hot water to be prepared. Did he really guess Anna became worried? The leaves were brewed in hot water and given to Eden, who thanked him and took a sip. And then he felt a sharp pain, reflexively throwing away and breaking the cup. Grabbing his collar because of suffocation, he realized that this was the very symptom. Winston ordered a doctor to be called immediately, but Eden reassured him, saying that he was fine. It was definitely the deadly poison of Akaban, he said, healing himself. Amanda saw this blue aura around Eden. It was probably the divine power. It was immediately obvious that the symptoms were weakening. If this is Akaba, then this is the same devilish herb that cannot be detected even with silver, and there is no antidote. The original stated that the sedative herb that Carden smokes is also poisonous. That's probably why he knows so much about Akabane, and most people thought so about Akabane. But recently, the temple discovered that Akabana's poison could be purified with divine power. Now everything is clear, considering that the Lever family was caught smuggling and that Akaban was found in her things. He asked Lady Anne if she planned to continue denying. "No," she cried out fearfully. She didn't know what it was. "So she admits that this bag is hers," Eden concluded. Anna realized her mistake. Since she was going to use Akaban, then she, the lady, also could not escape punishment. Anna begged for help. She tearfully screamed at the Duke that she really was not guilty. But with a noise, the knights took the girl away. Amanda expected this, but did not think that everything would be decided so quickly. The head butler said that they would also go and help settle everything. Wait, Amanda suddenly thought, if Winston and Chelsea leave, they will stay. Yes, just the three of them, it's awkward. She said that she would go too. It seemed like she was about to have indigestion and needed to go and rest. But suddenly Eden stopped the girl. She looked bad, and he asked to be allowed to examine her. At that very moment, interrupting the man, Duke Carden intervened and refused the knight. Eden tensed and asked Duke Mercedes warily what this meant. Their relationship was probably worse than Amanda thought. The temple and the House of Mercedes were known for their hostile relationship. The feud began with Carden's hatred of the temple, and the temple in turn disliked Mercedes. The only family that did not worship the goddess, without mutual respect, the gap in their relationship only grew. But Amanda still couldn't understand why Carden hated the temple so much. The original didn't tell about this, but while she was thinking about it, the Duke pulled her closer to him. And he replied to Eden that he couldn't stand it when other people's hands touched his property. Everything in Mercedes's house is his, and the tutor is no exception. The poet, pulling the girl closer to himself, told the man not to dare touch her. Amanda thought, stunned. What was he saying now? Amanda wondered why Carden had suddenly shown interest in her. He doesn't even pay attention to his own son, Vincent. Eden immediately apologized to the Duke, saying that he had been impolite and had not meant to frighten the lady. He explained that he just wanted to say goodbye before leaving. Thanks to her active assistance in the case, they were able to find evidence of Akabana's smuggling. As the commander of the First Sacred Knightly Order, he would one day pay her for this service. So he asked if she could tell him her name, and the Duke was displeased. And Amanda realized that he really was as honest a person as in the original. But she only did what she had to do as a tutor in Mercedes's house. She replied, there was no need to get involved with the temple. Moreover, Eden seems to be completely unaware that the temple was deliberately spreading a Bakken. This means that there could be another dark side inside the temple, so he doesn't need to pay it anything. Because of Anna's case, she found herself in the spotlight. It was better to behave quietly for a while, and having said this, she took her leave. Carden said menacingly that if, as she had said, he had no more business here, then he must leave the mansion immediately. And explaining that there would be no next time, he left the reception room, leaving Eden. The next day, Winston thanked Teacher Amanda for yesterday. If she hadn't checked those tea leaves, the Mercedes duchy would have been dragged into trouble too. It's okay, Amanda replied. The main thing is that no one was hurt. This isn't just a problem, but a case of an attempt on power. If Eden had not personally confirmed that the poison belonged to Anna, it would have been difficult to avoid an investigation. Even though she provoked it, since she paid off the debt, it's not a big deal. It's time for that special clause of the contract to shine. She asked if the butler remembered the special clause that had been written into the contract when it was drawn up. Since Anna could no longer continue her studies, from now on she will take on the responsibility of conducting all of the young master's lessons. On the contrary, the butler admitted with a smile, he felt even calmer that way. A teacher like her can be trusted with the young master. He will not interfere in the future. She can conduct them as she wishes. Great. Now Amanda will have more opportunities, but in exchange, he continued. And he said that the gentleman asked her to report to him about the lessons in his office. What? Amanda thought, taken aback. What did he just say? The problem was that she would have to see Carden a lot, but still. Now the weather was nice outside, and the problem with Anna was solved. It was just the lesser of two evils. Vincent also seemed to have calmed down, and now their time spent together was not tense. Anna, who drove a wedge between Carden and Vincent, disappeared. Now this child will no longer commit parricide by killing Carden in the future. The reason why the former tutor Anna was able to quarrel between them was, of course, Carden's relationship with his son. Although Vincent is officially known as Carden's biological son, in fact his real father is the Duke's older brother. Carden himself was an illegitimate son, suffered from fever from birth, and was despised and rejected by his parents. The only one who accepted such a Carden as a member of the family was his half-brother. It was his brother who found the magic pipe and the calming herb for Carden. However, the day after inheriting the title of Duke, he suddenly disappeared, leaving a document transferring the title to Carden. Since the Duke's seat could not be left vacant, Carden inherited it. And the next day, having inherited the title, he brought 3-year-old Vincent with him. Perhaps Vincent remembered something, so Amanda decided to find out. She asked the boy if she could ask him something, and he didn't refuse her. Then the governess asked him what he thought of His Grace the Duke, and Vincent trembled. He was frightened by this topic, but he still said that the Duke was a good man, still calling Carden Duke. Only the Duke gave him shelter, so he wanted to study well, but he couldn't do it. Yes, that was why Vincent was refusing lessons or wanting to hide, she understood. He knew better than anyone that his reputation affected Carden's reputation, but he was too young to handle it alone. Then Amanda enthusiastically declared that everything was fine and she would help him. "Teacher Ami," he asked hopefully. She confirmed, although he still had to think about how exactly to help. But she just hoped that Vincent, being near her, and after eliminating the factors that prompted him to do this, would not become like in the original. In any case, the conclusion was clear. Amanda had to win over Carden first. Knocking on the door of the office, Amanda asked the Duke if he was there, but there was silence in response. There was no answer, and she assumed he had left, although he was not the type to leave a room. Or maybe he was having a magical rage attack, Amanda worried. She started knocking and calling for the Duke again, and finally the door opened and Amanda let out a breath. He took so long to answer, but apparently it was too early to rejoice. A hand reached out from the crack towards her, and grabbing the governess by the shoulder, the Duke forcibly pulled her inside, slamming the door. Finding herself between the Duke and the door, Amanda was somewhat taken aback. The man looked at her with a completely empty gaze and did not answer at all. The original stated that Carden was unable to control his magical rage, causing him to suffer from pain and nightmares. Judging by the fact that he's still moving, he might be fighting the magic that's trying to consume him. He needs help. An ordinary person would be crushed by the magic that got out of control and would lose consciousness. But she is different. With her ability to control dreams, perhaps she can destroy Carden's nightmare and wake him up. At least for now, this was the only way to solve the problem. But suddenly the magic stopped stopping, getting out of control. Something was wrong. The light seemed to absorb her, and the next moment a bright light illuminated the entire room. And Amanda, opening her eyes, discovered that she was in an unknown place. It was dark and damp all around, and judging by the flash of light, something had gone wrong. Carden had also disappeared somewhere, but suddenly light fell on her and people entered the room. Amanda realized in horror that they were coming here. There was nowhere to even hide. What to do? She cringed, expecting to be inevitably discovered or worse. But when she opened her eyes the next moment, she realized that people had passed by, and her hands turned out to be transparent. She became invisible. If her ability activated before she lost consciousness, it means she was in a dream. Then it turns out that the owner of this dream was none other than Carden. Yes, now she saw the little prisoner and exhausted boy at the end of the room. It was a terrible sight. She did not understand how anyone could do this to a child. The men in robes were talking about the progress of the ritual, which was almost completed. And if the ritual is successful, they will receive a doll called Mercedes. This design on the back of the robe was undoubtedly a symbol of the ancient temple. Amanda saw it by chance while reading books on archaeology at the academy. Now you can't see this symbol anywhere, but why did people with this symbol do this to Carden? If the ritual was successful, he could be returned to Mercedes, but if unsuccessful, he could be secretly disposed of. And then they began the ritual. Bright rays of light seemed to pierce him. The boy screamed in pain, and Amanda simply could not bear to see this suffering. She screamed at the magicians to stop, screamed that he would die like this. Carden coughed up blood. Amanda kept screaming to see if they could hear her and told them to stop, but the boy was already giving in. She was angry and didn't know what to do, and at that very moment she made her way to the altar and covered Carden with herself. She screamed that they were all crazy and begged them to stop, as if forgetting that it was a dream. That day they met in the library, and other days too. Did he really see such nightmares every time? But when everything became quiet and stopped, the boy cleared his throat and asked who she was. "Carden," she asked haltingly, feeling the touch for a moment. But it was a dream. Did he really see her? But at that moment, when she saw a spark of hope in his eyes, she fell into despair. These are memories she cannot interfere with, and in the end, she cannot save him. She is powerless. And she is very disappointed in herself. Perhaps she was too self-confident all this time. She thought that with her ability to control dreams, she could save him from nightmares at any moment. Tears poured from Amanda's eyes, and she apologized for not being able to help, for not being able to save. But suddenly Carden answered that everything was fine and asked her not to cry. For a moment, a smile appeared on his face, but he was unable to finish speaking as a flash of light appeared. The light was getting out of control again, but she hadn't saved Carden yet. She begged Carden to wait, stretched out her hand towards him, but moved further and further away. And at that moment, her physical body was lying near the office window. After some time, Amanda came to her senses, realizing that she was back in Carden's office. In that case, Carden, she thought anxiously, looking around. And thank God he was lying next to her. Fortunately, his breathing was even, and the raging magic seemed to have died down as well. If he suddenly remembered her in a dream, he might suspect something, so it was necessary to correct this. Using dream control magic on him again, she asked him to forget that terrible and painful dream. When she finished, Amanda hoped that this would at least help Carden get rid of the terrible memories. Well, now it was time to call Winston, she thought, getting ready to leave. But suddenly Carden grabbed her hand. Amanda gasped and wondered when he had managed to come to his senses. And on top of all that, she was frightened by how angrily and warily he looked at her. Then the governess greeted the Duke awkwardly, trying to explain herself. But in a fit of anxiety, she asked him not to misunderstand her. Carden did not understand what misunderstanding she was talking about. Amanda said she came to report on the progress of the young master's training, but he did not respond. She looked in to check, but he was unconscious, and she just stayed there until he came to. She had no other intentions, she said, and Carden told her to stop. Judging by his reaction, one would think the Duke didn't remember anything. Not that his magic was out of control, nor that she had looked into his sleep. But what kind of dream was it? The master of that dream was undoubtedly young Carden, and people with the symbols of the ancient temple clearly cast some kind of spell on him. What the hell happened to him? Moreover, this was not mentioned in the original, which means that Carden carefully concealed everything related to the ancient temple. What if she was kicked out of the duchy for poking her nose into this dream? Then it would be even more difficult for her to get to the family heirloom. You need to be a little more careful. Suddenly, Amanda noticed that Carden's face was very pale, perhaps as a result of the magical emission. That's right, in the original he was always exhausted after magical emissions. The girl was wondering how she could help him, but suddenly remembered her recent acquisition. Then she called out to the Duke. Carden asked what it was. She answered, opening her hand, "A gift." "The gift is a piece of junk old ring," the man asked indignantly. Amanda explained that the ring was unusual, and with special powers, as befits a villain, he had a strange manner of speech. The girl asked if she could have his hand for a second, and while he was thinking, she took it herself. Maybe it was because she saw a fragile, small version of him, she thought as she put the ring on. But he no longer seemed as unapproachable as before, and I asked how he was. And, having examined the ring, he contemptuously called it an abomination. "No, that's not it. My mood has improved." She asked if my head has cleared up. "I don't feel anything like that." Well, my head cleared up and my mood improved. Perhaps his condition had not improved because of this ring, the Duke replied. And because of her. What the girl asked, taken aback, and wondered if he had figured out her identity. After contact with her, my head becomes clear, both last time and now. Last time? Is he really talking about that time? That's why he caught her. Carden told the teacher to tell her who she really was. It was a dangerous situation or an opportunity. Being near St. Celestine Carden could get rid of the pain. She didn't know the exact reason, but perhaps her ability had a similar effect on Carden. She should have tried to use this for negotiations. She said that he had already guessed. True, her ability could help him. Carden asked what kind of ability it was, but it was difficult to explain. But if he allowed it, she would like to help him. But Amanda had a condition. "Condition?" Carden asked with a grin, noticing the teacher's fearlessness. She should know that he can simply tie her to himself if he wants. And then no negotiations would be necessary. He asked if the teacher really wasn't afraid of him. The man was incredibly close, and Amanda felt the pressure, but if Carden was as cruel as he says, he would have kept Celestine for a long time, like in the original. But Carden, even when he loved Celestine, only circled around her, without forcing her. So his current behavior is an attempt to push her away before he gets hurt again. She knows this because she was like this in the past, and she also knows what this pain is. Therefore, when touching Carden, she replied that she was not afraid of him. His lordship swallowed the governess's waywardness, and after thinking about it, he turned away, snorting and calling her a strange woman. She could have exhaled, not that it was strange, but she seemed to have tensed up without even realizing it. The Duke then asked the teacher what conditions she was proposing. Amanda knew that the illness the Duke suffered from was not madness, but a magical discharge. Over time, they will become stronger, and the effect of the sedative herb will become weaker, and the nightmares will become more terrible. It will be more difficult for him to distinguish dreams from reality, and eventually he will go crazy, so she will help him, the girl said. She claimed that she could help him so that he would not suffer from headaches and insomnia. Then the counter-question arose, what is the fee? This is not charity, after all. It was a family heirloom of Duke Mercedes, and she begged to be allowed to use it just once. Of course, he could not give it right now. She would help him for a year, and after that he would allow her. But then the Duke interrupted and replied that it was a pity that the family heirloom of the Mercedes duchy had long been lost. Amanda felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her body went cold, and she asked anxiously what. The relic symbolized the entire family and was a treasure demonstrating the power of the head of the family. The previous head of the family, his older brother, took the Mercedes relic with him and disappeared. A search for him is currently underway. Wait, in that case it is natural that Carden is illegitimate and suffering from insanity. He could not establish himself as the head of the family, and his position is precarious. All circumstances are putting pressure on Carden. He understood that she was very disappointed because she had become close to him for the sake of the relic. Now that she was sure that the relic was gone, was she going to leave the DM? Of course not, Amanda answered. She explained to his lordship that the reason she had stayed in this mansion was not only for this. Seeing the other side of this man and watching the sweet Vincent, she couldn't just stand there and watch them both go to their deaths. Besides, by staying in the duchy, she will be able to more easily track the location of the relic. He will do everything possible to change the future that is predetermined for him and will not leave this place. The Duke listened to the governess and repeated again that they were currently looking for the relic. His goal is also to get her back as soon as possible, and he will definitely get her back. Therefore, putting down his pen, Carden replied, he accepts the teacher's offer. The girl really perked up and enthusiastically thanked his lordship. Looking at her watch, she realized how late it was and said that she would go, but not before. This ring, of course, would have its effect later, but if he still had difficulty sleeping at night, she asked him to call her. Who knows, maybe it will have a positive effect on his sleep too. And then the girl said goodbye to the Duke until the next meeting and left the room. Left alone, the Duke became immersed in thought. He had been wondering why Vincent liked the new teacher, and now he seemed to be beginning to understand. A few days later, Amanda thought that she herself had suggested that he call her, but knowing Carden's character, I thought that several months would pass before he would make up his mind. But she didn't think that they would call her just like that. Winston, watching them, asked Chelsea if she found all this suspicious. At such a late hour, he kept dragging out his sentences as if expressing his anxiety. But the very next moment he exclaimed in admiration. The owner called the teacher. There was definitely something between them. He was sure that something was going on that they didn't know about. He thought that they looked good together. But I didn't expect everything to develop so quickly. Chelsea said that it might have something to do with Vincent. But Winston, with a tremor in his chest, told the girl how slow she was. After all, this could mean that a new wind would blow into the Duchy of Mercedes. Sitting next to Carden, Amanda finally asked the Duke what she should do. He simply answered after a pause, asking her to stay close. However, Carden didn't know about her abilities, so she could really only be there. Anyway, wasn't her presence here pointless, she thought. But then Carden pointed to the drawer and said that there was a book in the drawer of the bedside table. Amanda said she would find it right away, even doubting whether she had fit into the right bedside table. But suddenly, it seemed, she found the right book. Carden said that he thought she liked this book. Wow, this book meant a lot to her, Ami admitted. Her father gave her this book. However, the creditors even took the books, and she tried to find it again, but it was difficult. And she had already given up, but accidentally stumbled upon her again. Carden noticed that she was very happy. Yes, very much, Amanda answered, and then wondered since when he had been looking at her. Meeting the girl's gaze, he turned away and sadly agreed. He supposed it must be nice to have such memories. Carden reacted so harshly at first that Amanda never thought he would ever say that to her. Perhaps these are sincere words spoken unconsciously. Is there anything that could comfort him at least a little? And then Amanda said that he also had people dear to him in this mansion. Vincent, the butler, and the other members of Mercedes' family. Isn't it enough to just start creating memories from now on? There was still a lot of time ahead, and if she could help in any way, she would definitely help. Carden admitted to the teacher that she was indeed a strange woman. He felt sleepy, and Amanda asked him to rest, and she would be there until he fell completely asleep. The next morning, Winston arrived at the office and brought the documents he had asked for. But suddenly he stopped, noticing a gentleman who looked as if he had just woken up. So, could it be that the gentleman had been sleeping until this time? The butler thought in amazement. Carden himself was shocked by this, and seeing the sun, he woke up and asked Winston what time it was. Amanda thought she should have stayed there longer, but because she was preparing for class, she left as soon as she saw that he had fallen asleep. Vincent called the teacher and said that he had already decided everything. Taking the samples, Amanda suggested that they test them together. But when I checked, I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything was correct, but just yesterday, Vincent didn't fully understand the concept. Even if he is diligent in his studies, how could he wait really in one day? The teacher turned to Vincent and asked if perhaps he had studied on his own yesterday. The boy turned away in embarrassment, nodding. There was a reason why he had never fallen behind in class before. It means that he had been secretly trying all this time, until now she had unconsciously looked at Vincent as a character from a novel. She felt ashamed of her preconceived notion that he would not study hard. Both Vincent and Carden were different characters now from the ones she knew from the novel. But even knowing this, she judged Vincent so rashly. She is a bad teacher. She feels sorry for him. Amanda asked, "Is he really a good boy and has tried very hard? Maybe he wants something." Since he tried so hard, the teacher should also reward him since he tried so hard. She wanted to thank him. Vincent thought there was nothing he wanted, but there was something he wanted to do. She asked what it was, and the boy sheepishly admitted that he wanted to go to the festival with his teacher, Ami. "Ah," she asked in surprise. Reading the teacher's reaction, Vincent thought that this meant no. He agreed that she shouldn't overexert herself, and then he began to think about what to ask for next time. What to do? Amanda thought. It wasn't something she could decide for herself, but those eyes and that look, damn. "Yes," she exclaimed, "let's go. If Vincent wants to go, then some festival is nothing." Why do people make mistakes when they know it's a mistake? She knew it was a mistake. But when she realized this, it was already too late. Since this was what had happened, all she had to do was convince Carden. But she couldn't even imagine what this choice would lead to in the future. This is how it all happened. After the lesson, Amanda approached the Duke and presented him with Vincent's results. This is the Young Master's Test, the 5th chapter of the Fundamentals of Magic, and despite his age and the difficult topic, he passed it with the highest score. Carden sighed disinterestedly and asked if she wanted to say that Vincent was a genius. Of course the young gentleman was smart, Amanda agreed, but this was not only the result of talent. To have mastered the material so well, he must have studied on his own until late at night after school. So she thought it would be good to give him a rest as a reward for his efforts. Rest? Asked the Duke. "There will be a festival in 3 days," she answered. "If his lordship allows, she and the young master will go there." Having thought about it, Carden allowed it, though, the girl asked joyfully, and thanked the Duke. It was unexpected that Carden was so generous in such things, or that he trusted her so much. In any case, this villain is the best, Amanda decided enthusiastically. Winston watched the Duke as he worked. It was the first time he had seen him so relaxed. It's probably all thanks to the teacher that the gentleman will finally have a partner. But then Carden told him that if he had no business, he should stop peeping. He himself did not notice how he had shown impoliteness, and asked the gentleman for forgiveness. "Okay," Carden answered. After a while, Winston broke the silence and asked the gentleman about Teacher Flinkton. "She seems like a very good person, doesn't she? And the young master obeys her well. More precisely, he only listens to Teacher Flinkton, which even offends him a little." The Duke looked at him from under his forehead, and Winston felt uncomfortable. Then Carden asked the butler if he really thought this teacher could be trusted. "Doesn't the gentleman really trust the teacher?" he thought, and answered, "Of course." The lady helped in a case that could have led to their family being accused of treason. But she also kept everything a secret and stayed with the young gentleman, and he asked if he believed Teacher Flinkton. "He doesn't believe it." Putting down his pen, the Duke firmly answered, reporting that he had recently had an outburst of magical power. When he came to, this teacher was nearby. Winston was in shock. In such a state, everything around was collapsing. But he did not notice this. Carden explained that the teacher was safe and sound, and what's more, he hadn't had that damned nightmare that day. One thing was clear, she was no ordinary home teacher, the Duke thought. Then the butler asked the master what he was going to do with the teacher. "Well," Carden replied with a grin, "we'll see." Amanda didn't think she'd come to the library again. She hadn't been to a festival for a long time either. She needed someone to ask. Chelsea wasn't at the mansion, and Winston hardly ever enjoyed the festival. And Carden? Well, regarding him, she'd better keep quiet. Well, by the way, Rayvon was nowhere to be seen. She wanted to find some materials. Maybe he had moved away. While she waits for his return, she can look around the library. It should be somewhere around here. And so she found materials related to the temple. They say the duchy's library is larger than the imperial one. If she digs through everything here, maybe she can find something about the ancient temple. She tried to remember the information from the original, but there was nothing related to the ancient temple anywhere. Moreover, what they used on Carden was definitely an ability similar to divine power. According to the setting, Carden lived on the streets before coming to the Mercedes Duchy. If the spell is successful, they will receive a doll named Mercedes. Is this connected to that nightmare? There are more than 1 or 2 things that are bothering her. Perhaps it is connected with the fall of Carden. Just think that she doesn't know so much about Carden, but she can't sit back either. She has to look. Late in the evening, a man quietly crept into the library through the window. And walking further, I came across a woman who had fallen asleep at the table. "What is she doing here?" thought Renov, removing his hood. "And these books are here. They all talk about the temple. Does she want to become a priestess? But they said that she was very helpful in solving Anna Lever's crime. She also made the young duke, who was called the little devil of the Mercedes family, become incredibly attached to her. From the outside, she seemed ordinary. But in this, how similar she is to that woman. No, it can't be. Amanda Flington can't know information that is only available to members of the imperial family. This woman is too ordinary, except for the fact that she is terminally ill. As the guildmaster of Luna, Lemon, he had all the information on the continent. But this concerned everything except one place, the Duchy of Mercedes, in order to obtain information about it. He entered there as a master, but was quickly discovered and offered to help find the lost relic. He was allowed to remain in the duchy as a librarian and managed to disguise himself thanks to the artifact. But he was not given a favor, but literally given a job, so if he neglects his duties, he can be fired. So the master of the information guild, Luna, found himself in a funny situation, climbing through windows like a thief. Well, therefore there is nothing left to do but beware of this woman who suddenly appeared. He heard that she had also been in contact with Eden Aquilium. Maybe it was worth digging deeper into the saint's side. But while Ravon was thinking about this, Amanda woke up and saw Mr. Ravon in front of her. The man smiled and asked if Lady Amanda had slept well, thinking to gradually find out the details. The girl noticed that the sun had already set, and the man said that she seemed to be interested in the temple, noticing the books on the table. "Yes, that's right," she replied, apologizing for taking the books without asking. "No big deal," he replied. She looked through all the books but didn't learn anything. At the academy, she read a book about an ancient temple, but alas, she didn't remember the name. Perhaps there is something in that forbidden room where Carden slept, but asking to go through is somehow awkward. She said she would like to consult with him about something. With him? Ravon asked in surprise. "The thing is, they're going to a festival in 2 days, but she hasn't been to one for a very long time. So I wanted to ask, could he also recommend places?" "It's not difficult," answered Ravon. But in return, he asked if she could tell him what had happened there when she returned from the festival. "Of course it can," Amanda answered, but not understanding, she asked if she could find out why. Ravon quickly came up with an excuse, saying that he lost his entire family as a child. "And since then, no matter how much I wanted to go to the festival, I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I wanted to at least experience it indirectly by listening to the story." But he probably drew out the phrase "assessing the situation." And he asked if it sounded pathetic that a grown man, but with such an injury. "No, not at all," Amanda exclaimed. "He is similar to her both in that he lost his family and in that he has not been to festivals since then. For her, too, the festival that she attended with her father when he was alive was her last." Amanda said that she would definitely tell him everything when she returned. So here she is, he thought, and asked, really, in that case? He will pass on all his knowledge to her. The atmosphere suddenly changed for some reason. He began to tell her animatedly about delicious places, about places for shopping, and Amanda asked him to wait. She would write it down. So, on the day of the festival, Amanda waited for Vincent to appear, as it was time to go out. She thought he needed a little more time, but suddenly Vincent appeared, running up and calling for Teacher Amy, hugging her. Looking at the boy, Amanda told Vincent that he was very cute. She asked who dressed him up so nicely, and he said that she, the teacher, was the most beautiful in the world. Winston appeared here, greeting the teacher. Amanda greeted the butler. She asked if he was going to the festival with them today, but unfortunately he was not. So, the girl thought, only she and Vincent are going in that case. Amanda asked if they would have security assigned to them. "Security?" He was surprised. "Yes," she asked. The butler asked if she wanted extra security, and even if so, why would they need it? "What? What is he talking about?" Amanda asked, stunned, thinking that Winston could not help but know such basic things. She felt like it wouldn't be safe for the two of them after all. He was a young master, so she was worried. But suddenly she heard the front door open and was surprised to see a man. The Duke noticed that the chatter had dragged on. Carden, she thought in shock. Tired of waiting, the man asked if they needed more time. And it was at that moment that Amanda realized that the fact that security was not needed made such sense. Those who dream of glory go to the imperial palace, those who want to defend their faith go to the temple, and those who dream only of wielding a sword go to Mercedes. This phrase was very popular among knight candidates. That the knightly order of the Duchy of Mercedes was famous for its fencing, moreover, while other families appointed captains. Carden possessed such incredible talent for fencing that he personally took on the task of training knights. And such a strong Carden was going with them. Now she understood why the butler had said that they didn't need protection. But in any case, she was worried about Vincent. Carden is his father after all, and he froze so much just after running into him, he needed to at least diffuse the situation a little. And she said that she was very glad that the Duke was also with them, and asked the young gentleman if this was really good. Yes, the boy answered, stuttering, reluctantly and timidly, purely out of politeness. The Duke was also silent. Amanda mentally begged him to say something too, so that Vincent would relax. Although Vincent believes that Carden saved him, so he feels indebted to the Duke. And perhaps he even considers the transfer of the title of heir to him to be part of this salvation. Vincent, who lives under constant pressure and fear of abandonment, will find it difficult to sincerely consider Carden a father. So, taking advantage of the opportunity, she will try to improve their relationship at least a little because she has a special card of recommendations from Ravon. The atmosphere at the festival was brighter than she thought, and everyone was in high spirits. But following the librarian's map, they came to a dark and shabby building. It's strange because Ravon definitely said that this is the best restaurant in the capital. It was already late to go to another restaurant, so she still made an order, but there was only soup on the menu and not a single customer. Could Ravon have deceived her? But maybe she should at least try it first. She turned to Vin, the young master, and asked him to eat carefully. The soup was hot. But then she flinched, almost speaking to him as usual. It was necessary to observe formalities in front of Carden. But then the Duke told the teacher that she could ignore him and behave as usual. Carden knew how close her relationship with Vincent was, so he asked her not to try. So he knew, and besides, he allowed her to speak informally, surprisingly. Carden certainly had a lenient side, but she thought he would be more strict in formalities. After all, Vincent is the heir to the duchy, but perhaps he cared for them in his own way. And, accepting such concern, Amanda invited Vincent to try the soup together. Embarrassed, the boy agreed. The plates were emptied. It turned out to be unexpectedly delicious. Ravon's recommendation was taken into account. The hostess asked the guests if their meal was tasty, and Amanda answered, yes, it was very tasty. This year, the restaurant is already 50 years old, and she has never met anyone who didn't like it. Amanda was surprised that she had been working there for so long. It was definitely a great place, and the food was delicious, so why weren't there people? True, the woman asked and sighed heavily. In fact, she used to trade not here but near the 4th district. But a few years ago, she had to move urgently because of some clean streets policy, but she found out about it too late. Due to the hasty move, she lost all her regular customers, and that is the very policy that the imperial family is pursuing. They were told that all the slums would be demolished and a new street would be built, and all the traders were driven out of that street. But for them, it simply meant everyone die. Suddenly, turning her attention to the Duke, the woman asked the young man if they had met somewhere. Maybe he used to live in the 4th district, she asked, as if trying to penetrate his most vulnerable spot. Enraged, Carden abruptly stood up from the table, saying all sorts of nonsense. The woman was worried that she had said too much. Amanda said that the ponies would go and handed over the payment for the food. After saying goodbye to the owner, they left, and it turned out that Carden hadn't left, but was waiting. It was as if she was walking around with a time bomb. She could understand Carden. As a great aristocrat, he might consider this an insult. So this reaction can be considered magnanimous, but Carden is not all that aristocratic. And for him, such a reaction is a little strange. And besides, he doesn't have the kind of appearance that can be confused with someone else. So Amanda wondered why the restaurant owner would say such a thing to Carden. The Duke said that she would burn a hole in him like that, but the girl apologized, saying that she was lost in thought. Like a caring mother, she asked Vincent if there was a place he wanted to go. But Vincent happily replied that with her, the teacher, he felt good everywhere. How sweet he was, truly. Vincent is truly an angel. Otherwise, such sweetness is simply inexplicable. She said that she, too, was happy everywhere with Vincent, and then asked the Duke if he had a place he would like to go. Is there anything concrete, Carden wondered? But then he replied that he was happy everywhere with the teacher, parodying his son. What? Amanda thought in horror. This man had just made fun of her. Had he? What are you doing now? She asked, but quickly gave in and said that wherever they went, don't complain later. Raven's map was full of select information about all sorts of attractions. Cheerful music filled the streets and smiles blossomed on everyone's faces. At first they both felt awkward, but now they seemed to fit in perfectly. Towards the end of the festival, she bought small gifts for the inhabitants of the mansion. Chelsea got hairpins, Vincent got a brooch, and Carden, he himself answered when he saw the gift, got cufflinks. Yes, Amanda said awkwardly, her body rising to attention on its own. He could have at least said whether he liked it or not, but she couldn't understand at all what he was thinking. Finding fault with the gift, Carden said that the cufflinks were inconvenient to fasten alone. Then Amanda offered him an alternative method and then found herself at the Duke's chest. With a satisfied look, she fastened the cufflink on the handkerchief that served as a tie. Having finished, she pulled back and asked, "Well, it's not that much trouble." The Duke looked thoughtfully at the final version of the accessory and said, "Not bad." Amanda was delighted. He was still a mysterious man, but she was very glad that they went out together. "Wow," Vincent exclaimed and said that they were very beautiful. The teacher thanked the boy. Thinking about how Vincent was different from Carden, she suggested that they go to the next alley. "Let's go," Carden agreed, smiling, and after that he and Vincent had a good time. And Carden, although he did not take an active part, silently watched their games. But soon it quickly got dark. It started to drizzle, and Amanda realized that it would soon rain. "Perhaps having assessed the weather they should return," said the Duke, and Amanda agreed. It was a pity, but nothing could be done. She called Vincent and said that it was time to go back. The boy awkwardly asked to wait a minute. The adults noticed the child nearby. He told the teacher that he was on his way. Amanda thought it was a local girl selling flowers at the festival. It would be good if Vincent also had a friend his own age, the teacher reasoned. The girl ran away, and Vincent ran to the teacher, who asked him to be careful. Vincent enthusiastically asked her to bow her head for a minute. "Come on." Before Amanda could ask what he was going to do, Vincent placed a daisy behind her ear. "So this is what he bought her recently. He said that it suits her very well, and she happily thanked Vincent. And now she suggested going back, because it was supposed to rain soon, and the boy agreed." While the adults were discussing that they could now return, the boy slowed down, having lost something. Noticing Vincent's anxiety, Amanda asked what was wrong. "What should I do?" asked the boy. The first gift that teacher Ami bought him had disappeared. "Ah, that brooch." The girl asked where he dropped it, but Carden assumed it was a pickpocket. It seems like it was a very meaningful gift for Vincent. Since he started crying, "You need to be more careful." But then the father decided to teach his son a lesson, and taking a step forward, addressed him coldly. The boy trembled, and the Duke explained to Vincent that tears would not solve anything. Is he really going to give up? To throw in the towel? That means not having the will to return what was lost. The boy pulled himself together, calming his emotions. Yes, that was the look his father liked. In any case, theft at the festival, those who do it, are ridiculously predictable. "Okay," Carden agreed. "He's still little. This time he'll help him." What did he just say? Amanda thought in shock, and the Duke ordered her to follow him. What Carden, who had always been cold and indifferent to Vincent, suddenly showed his emotions so openly? He volunteered to help, especially since Carden, an aristocrat far removed from such places, knew where to go. At this time, the girl selling flowers returned home. Mia, the man called her. He asked her to come in and with passive aggression asked if she had prepared the tribute. Mia nodded and emptied the basket of everything she had stolen from the festival onto the floor. And what's more, she stole a child's wallet. However, he is not in a position to disdain the money of snotty children. And yet, how lucky she was soon, under the pretext of clean streets. This place will be wiped off the face of the earth. If she pays her tribute regularly, they will take care of her sick little sister. "What are you waiting for?" the man asked, shouting. "There are still flowers left in the basket." "So why doesn't she go and sell the leftovers?" When the girl ran to the exit, he hissed and called her a slowpoke. But Mia was unable to leave the house. The door swung open in front of her, and she dropped the basket out of fear. The armed man standing at the door said he knew she would be here. The places where rats live are predictable, and he angrily asked if they, the bastards, had interfered with them. Carden led her and Vincent deep into a seedy alley to the fox's lair, a refuge for those who imagined themselves kings. It looked like a thieves' den, Amanda realized. The Duke had told them not to leave it. As soon as they entered the fox's den, they were attacked by a multitude of bandits. But none of them could touch a hair on their heads, thanks to Carden. And so they found themselves here. Amanda was still scared. Vincent noticed that girl. And shouting, "Hey!" she exclaimed. Pointing her finger that it was she, the girl stepped back. The man angrily asked who he was. An intruder. Why the hell did he come here? He called the other bandits, but Carden explained that he had cleared away the trash that was lying at the entrance. "Damn," the bandit swore, and brandishing a dagger asked how dare he. Approaching and swinging his weapon, he shouted that he would make him regret this. The Duke gave the fox a chance to feel the advantage, but the next moment he knocked the dagger out of his hands. And without breaking a sweat, he knocked the man down, pinning him to the floor with his foot. Then the Duke's patience ran out and he angrily ordered the man to shut his mouth. The man clenched his teeth fearfully, and Amanda thought what incredible strength. It was amazing how he could defeat such a big guy with one blow. Vincent asked the teacher to wait a minute. Walking confidently, he approached the girl and extended his hand. Amanda wondered what he was going to do. Realizing that the boy was not going to hit her, Mia looked up in surprise. And Vincent told her to return his treasure. Wow, thought the governess. He sees this girl for the first time, but he spoke to her himself. Vincent waited, and Mia returned for the things scattered on the floor and picked up the brooch. As expected, this girl took Vincent's brooch. She was handing over the stolen goods. But suddenly she grabbed Vincent by the wrist, and instead of giving him the brooch, she dragged him along with her. Vincent got scared. The teacher also got alarmed and started to wait for them. Suddenly the children ran into a secret passage in the wall, and Amanda rushed after them. As soon as they entered the secret passage, a long, stale, unpleasant smell hit their nose. Do they really live in a place like this? It was hard to even call it a room, especially since there was another small child behind there. Maybe, Amanda suggested, she stole it because of that child. Mia nodded. The girl realized that she couldn't speak normally. It didn't seem like she was lying. But the situation was complicated. The Duke looked at both children emotionlessly. The girl's younger sister coughed up blood, and then Mia, worried, began to cry even harder. The child had a strange condition. First, he needed to be shown to a doctor, she said. Otherwise, she would die like this. But suddenly Carden intervened in the conversation and asked the teacher what she was doing. And indeed, Carden was there too, Amanda remembered. She worriedly told his lordship that the child's condition was very serious and that he needed to be shown to a doctor. And the Duke asked if she was going to help children who had nothing to do with her. Of course, after hesitating, the girl answered in surprise. Carden said that these are rats living in the garbage dump. Not only do they eat other people's leftovers, but they also steal, what is her hobby, charity. Carden's words, which contained not a drop of lie, pierced her heart like a small dagger. And yet, the reason she couldn't abandon the child was because she had memories of loneliness. How desperately she wanted something to be near her, so she could not turn away from these children even more. These are children. Of course we need to help them. They are adults and should help children. And she convincingly explained to the Duke that she would help this child. He frowned. With a heavy sigh, Carden told the teacher that she was truly hopeless. "What does he mean?" the girl asked His Excellency in surprise. Taking the child from her arms, the man said that they would go to a hospital he knew. With Carden's help, the child received successful treatment at the Mercedes Family Hospital. The older sister went to an orphanage at the duchy, and that's how Vincent made his first friend. Vincent wasn't afraid of just these kids. If he interacted with his peers, it would help him when he returned to the academy. Luckily, she managed to persuade Carden, and although it will take time for him to fully recover, she is glad that they can continue to be together. It seemed that everything had calmed down. Amanda was so tired that she wanted to quickly go and rest. She suggested to her companions to slowly return back, but suddenly it started to rain. True, Amanda didn't know then about the storm that what happened today would bring.